Tua Tagovailoa, along with Gatorade, made a splash in the South Florida community yesterday. We have a Dolphins injury to a rookie reporting to camp to report, and a way too early draft sleeper to put on your radar here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Network. Today's Wednesday, July 19th, 2023. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with Joe Marino. I want to thank you guys who keep it locked in with us on a daily basis because it is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We have a litany of topics today. So we're going to pop the tab here on an energy drink. I'm going to take a swig. And we're going to get rolling here. Starting first and foremost, Tua Tagovailoa, along with Gatorade, yesterday made a bit of a splash, donating $65,000 in sports equipment to Miami Edison High School. So this was Tua, along with Gatorade's Equality in Sports program and the nonprofit charity Good Sports. $65,000 in sports equipment to Miami Edison. Just an awesome act. And that's, I think, one of the things that when I think back to when I was writing at USA Today's Dolphins Wire for their vertical, and you're charged with writing 5 to 7 topics on a daily basis year round. Right? You got to go digging to find some subjects to talk about. And I remember the 2 years that I did that, and it was 19 and 20. The Dolphins were at such a forefront of being active in the community. And I'm looking across all of these other team verticals for USA Today. And I'm wondering, is that what everybody else is doing with their content right now? And then the NFL 100 season happens and it comes and goes. And you realize not every team is as engaged. Every team has connections to their community. Every team makes efforts to give back to their community. But the Dolphins were something special. And to see just another example of the Dolphins and their players being involved in their community and giving back to their community, I think is really, really cool. So $65,000 in sports equipment to Miami Edison for Tua Tagovailoa, along with Gatorade and Good Sports. And Tua, with that opportunity to, make that donation and be around some of the high school kids, made a point to, he was asked to sit down and talk with the media. And he talked about a litany of things. He talked about what they have on offense this year, the potential of the team. He talked about himself personally, and he even said so himself on his social media account. When he posted his wife on their 1-year anniversary, and says, I try to keep not one to talk about my public life effectively, or private life effectively, is what Tua said. And you got to kind of hear him talk about family and how it's changed him. And it's made me, as somebody who has a 2.5-year-old daughter at home, and appreciate some of the growth and experiences that Tua Tagovailoa is going through that we don't necessarily get to see a lot of because he is private with his private life. And I understand why. He was a prodigy in high school. He goes to Alabama, throws a game-winning touchdown pass in the national championship game. He is this obsessive sports culture. I read the YouTube comments on some of my shows and get turned off. I can't imagine being Tua Tagovailoa and getting on social media and seeing what people for 5 years, the polarizing back and forth. So I get the private life, but I have the story up from Safedin with USA Today. And I know there were a number of stories that were written about Tua and the interviews that he provided with that event in Gatorade. And I know Joe Shad did an excellent story as well, but I have the one up from Safed just to read some of the quotes from Tua and this exchange that he had with the media. He was asked, first of all, we'll touch on 2023, the season, and then I want to finish with Tua Tagovailoa, the person. I think we have a chance to do something really, really special. Last year was special. Let's not take away from that. But I think this year we can do something much more special than we did last year if we get all our minds in the right place. And he would go on to kind of talk about the mentality with the ball in your hands, the attention to detail, bringing everybody else back. And it was good perspective. He said, I think the coolest thing about it is we're coming back. This is my first time coming back in a year where the offense hasn't changed. It's been the same. There might be minor changes, but it's not drastic changes where I have to relearn an offense, relearn what the coaches want, what they expect of me. And it really helps with the rhythm of everything because the receivers know most of what we've got installed, and there's a comfort level there. And then if you've listened to the Play Callers podcast from Jordan Rodriguez, courtesy of The Athletic, that includes Mike McDaniel, you can kind of construct what the thought process is for the team coming into this year and how much trust there is and how important trust is with this scheme to be able to execute it successfully. So for the familiarity component to be here and for the players to affirm this and for other coaches in other systems that are highly successful offenses across the leagues kind of affirm that the timing and the trust is a super high factor in the success of the offense. People have asked the question, where the Dolphins better on the offensive side of the ball? I think it's depth from a talent perspective. But I didn't think they were hurting for top-end talent last year. Now, they didn't have the representation in the Jeremy Fowler ESPN polling of league executives on the offensive side of the ball that I thought that they might. Tua was an honorable mention quarterback. Jalen Waddle was an honorable mention wide receiver. Teron Armstead was an honorable mention offensive tackle. Tyreek Hill was the fourth. Some bozo in the league on the NFC called him a vertical gadget guy. Okay. Sure. You can call Tyreek Hill a vertical gadget guy, be my guest. But I think that's reading between the lines. That's the expectation, is that there's another level to tap into here. And you've seen examples of that in all the stops from the Shanahan tree along the way. And that includes Atlanta with Matt Ryan and what they did with talent that was largely the same. And San Francisco and how it took a little while to gel. So that's the Dolphins offensively. Now, Tua himself talking about what life was like before his family and how his family has kind of changed his perspective. And I appreciate this because some of this hits home for me too. You know, I'm somebody I've been in football coverage for 10 years. I don't have a degree in journalism. I was a student of the game who got hurt and couldn't play to the level of competition that he was hoping to. I never would have made it to the league. Let's make no bones about that. It was like 215, ran like a 4.8. So I wasn't going anywhere. Right. But I knew it wasn't done with the game. So I make these own pursuits and, I'm in my early 20s and I commit myself to effectively being an entrepreneur and learning the game and getting mentored where I can get mentored and hustling. And now it's 10 years later and my daughter's 2.5, and it puts a lot of stuff in perspective for what matters and what doesn't, and having the right perspective on things and not sweating the things that you're not able to control. And Tua himself said yesterday when talking, and this is quoted with the Safed Dean piece on USA Today. For me, having my kid throughout that entire season last year, nothing mattered to me whether I played good or bad, whether I threw 6 touchdowns or brought the team back, or if I threw 6 interceptions. I knew I was coming back home to my son, and he was going to want me to embrace him. And I think perspective of everything sort of changed how I go about doing things in a way. I think it's essentially growing up. You get to a point where nothing else matters. And of course you care. Like I care about making the best podcast that I can too. And to put myself in Tua's shoes, like I can't possibly compare it to being the starting quarterback of an NFL franchise. But to be so obsessive over that. And he said that too. He said, I would come home to this big house and that's it. I would go into that house with my thoughts and that's it. I bask in my thoughts. If my family's in there, I just think. That's basically it. That's what I am. I'm a thinker. I try to be critical before things happen too. Talking about life before marriage and having a child. And I think Tua, everything about him is this really fascinating, I think, sports psychology and the human component of the game of football that, you kind of continue to get the affirmations of that. And then you think about what his early formative experiences like were in the league. And it can't help but make you root for him. I know there's some Dolphins fans out there that like they don't want to root for him because they don't want him to be their quarterback anymore, but just root for the team, right? Like I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan, but like to actively root against an individual uh, who went through the kind of dynamics that he went through, I can't help but feel like I want it to be successful. And if it's successful, everybody's going to get what they want, which is the Dolphins to win. So I try not to talk too much to it because people get crazy talking about Tua Tagovailoa. And I can't imagine. Like I try to be as objective as I can and honest as I can. And like you offer honest critiques about his game and people tell you that you hate him. And then you say you think he's a top 8 to 12 quarterback in the NFL. And people tell you they're an idiot because you're a homer and you love him. So I enjoyed the gift along with Gatorade and Good Sports. I enjoyed his perspective, not so much on the team because I didn't think it was anything we didn't already know and you couldn't read the lines anywhere else, but to hear Tua the person talk gave me an appreciation for Tua because as a fellow young dad whose child changed their perspective on like how you go about doing things and the perspective in your career versus your perspective in like the big picture in life, I enjoyed it. And hopefully somebody else who might be in the same shoes finds themselves enjoying it as well because they can connect with it as well. We are going to talk about Zeke Vandenberg, who went on IR yesterday. That was announced by the team. That's next here on Locked On Dolphins. Before we go any further, though, got to take your first swing for betting Major League Baseball with our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook, and you can get up to 10 times back your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. You bet $20 on a game, you'll get $200 back, win or lose, with our friends over at FanDuel. It's $200 that you can spend on the money line to who do you think is going to hit the first home run or the game total, you name it. All on an app that is safe, secure, super easy to use. And best of all with FanDuel, when you win, you get paid out instantly. You don't got to wait. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today at FanDuel.com/locked-on to get up to $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. So Zeke Vandenberg, season is over before it starts. It was announced, and Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald reported that he had suffered a season-ending injury while training. So what does that mean for Zeke Vandenberg, and what does that mean for the Dolphins? Well, first of all, for Zeke, it's a bummer, right? Zeke is a 24-year-old undrafted rookie out of Illinois State. He won the Buck Buchanan Award last year. He was first team All Missouri Valley Conference. And as a pass rusher, I think Vandenberg obviously showed a certain level of productivity with 14 sacks last year and 21 tackles for loss that you would obviously get excited about as a hybrid type player. He's a little undersized. He's in the 230, 240 range as a pass rush outside linebacker type. I thought Vandenberg was going to struggle with length in his efforts to make this team. And I didn't know that he was kind of the twitched up athlete that, say, Andrew Van Ginkel is, and Van Ginkel was a 5th round pick that allowed him to kind of lean on his speed and agility as both a special teams player and as a pass rusher. So for Vandenberg specifically, what this is going to give you the opportunity to do on injured reserve is the Dolphins can taxi you to next year if they want. Like his season for the Dolphins with this contract is definitively over. You go on IR at this stage in the game, you can't come off. You would have to get cut completely, go through waivers, and then somebody else would have to sign you to a brand new contract. So that's a bummer for Vandenberg. I think it's not necessarily a bad thing in that he gets to be incubated on the roster all year, and you can kind of run with it and give him a chance next year with a year of development after healing. Obviously, he's got to heal, and we hope that goes well for him. But this also opens up a roster spot, and it is about 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning right now. Nothing's been committed to yet. Obviously, everybody's question is if the Dolphins are going to add a veteran running back to their running back room, i.e. Dalvin Cook. We're getting close here. We are less than a week away from veterans reporting to camp. I know Dalvin is still training with Nick Hicks in South Florida. I saw a video from Nick the other day. I think it was yesterday that had Dalvin Cook. And Nick appropriately captioned it like fine wine, right? Getting better with age. The Dolphins, I think, are still the leaders in the clubhouse. I think this entire waiting game has been Miami has put an offer on the table that is competitive with the rest of offers that are out there. If it wasn't, and somebody blew the doors off, he'd have signed already. You get the sense that he does want to play for the Dolphins, but you're hoping either the money comes up or that an injury happens elsewhere and it forces the money to come up. And that's kind of the unfortunate situation for Dalvin, not being tethered to a team right now that he finds himself in. Is you're kind of biding your time, hoping you find some leverage. And as you look across the NFL right now, you don't find a lot of leverage for backs right now. There is a lot of unhappy running backs between Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs being on the franchise tag. Apparently, Saquon Barkley and the Giants were within $1 to $2 million and couldn't get it done. I probably would have taken the deal. Josh Jacobs was sitting in his car in the parking lot with Max Crosby in case it got done before the deadline on Monday, and that didn't get done. And then you see Austin Eckler taking to social media and Christian McCaffrey taking to social media and Derrick Henry taking to social. Like, these dudes are ticked off. And I understand it. I think the mechanics of the position are tough. And this is not meant to be a running back economics discussion because I don't have the solution. I really don't. It is the position where the shelf life or the wall can come rather quickly, and teams don't want to get locked into a Todd Gurley or Ezekiel Elliott situation. Ezekiel Elliott and Todd Gurley, by the time they played the first year of their new deals, they had already withered away. And it's like, shoot, well, we shouldn't have given you the contract extension in the first place and should have just rode with you year by year and given you the franchise tag. Had you play on the 5th year option, your 4th year, your rookie contract, your 5th year option, and your franchise tag. And we'd have saved a lot of money and not had the dead cap. So backs, their premier years are on their rookie contract at a higher degree of consistency than other positions. And then teams are going to say, we're not going to pay you for what you did. We're going to pay for what you're going to do. And we don't know how long you're going to do what you do. So for Dalvin, I say all that to say this. I think a 1-year deal for Dalvin Cook is the most likely scenario, and let Dalvin kind of go back into the market, hopefully with a good year where you have all 32 teams before they've made other commitments to their running back rooms. And I think that would put him in a position to maximize whatever his next contract's going to be. But I'd be surprised if he signs for anything more than 1 year. And I think it's probably $4 to $5 million with incentives on top of it. I'll be fascinated to see if they buy somebody else before now in the start of veterans reporting to camp, if they just leave the roster spot open or if the Dalvin Cook shoe drops. I think it's close, personally. Like you're only going to wait so long, and I think if you're going to play on a 1-year deal that is effectively a prove-it situation, it would behoove you to not miss the first few weeks of camp when you're playing on a new team and have to learn a new set of teammates and offensive linemen. So I think we're close, and as of right now, the Dolphins are sitting here with an open roster spot at their disposal with placing Zeke Vandenberg on injured reserve. So that's your latest rookie storyline. And to bring us to a close today, I actually have a next year rookie observation. And it might seem like a surprise for me to mention a rookie for the 2024 draft class, but I have a feeling you'll probably understand why when I tell you who he is. Here next, Locked On Dolphins. Ronde Gaston II. Tight end, University of Syracuse. This guy's on my radar. And obviously, he was born in Miramar. He played for Pat Surtain at American Heritage. He goes to Syracuse. He's a wide receiver. He's 6'5", 220 pounds. Chip off the old block for his dad. Obviously, Ronde Gaston caught those touchdown passes in the late 90s, early 2000s. Some of the best one-handed catches you will ever see on a sizzle reel. Ronde Gaston. His son, 6'5", 220 pounds. I think he's more fluid and more explosive than his dad. He participated in hurdles. Won track meets in, I think, the 300 hurdles in high school. Goes to Syracuse. He's a wide receiver. Transitions to tight end last year. Leads the country in tight end receiving yards. More than Brock Bowers. More than everybody else. It was Ronde Gaston II had the most receiving yards, over 900 receiving yards amongst tight ends last year. He rewrote the Syracuse tight end record books for receptions and yardage. He had the most amount of receptions for a sophomore in Syracuse program history, and he's a tight end. And we're going through the process where we're kind of bulking up on weight a little bit. We need to get more comfortable with the physicality. But if you want a subplot for college football this season and something to root for, hope that Ronde Gaston II stacks on. He probably needs about 15 to 20 pounds worth of weight on his frame to play tight end at the NFL level because he's real long and wiry. But this dude, he will go above the rim. He will put you on a poster just like his dad. He's got super strong hands just like his dad. He runs those crossing routes across the middle with no fear, just like his dad. He can get vertical. You see him winning routes from the slot and getting vertical down the field. Caught a game winner this past year in the final minute of the game on a downfield corner route to the front pylon. Just a really, really fascinating player to watch from a wide receiver to tight end conversion standpoint. But then you also stack in the storyline of, oh, yeah, he's a Ronde Gadsden's kid. If it doesn't make you feel old like it does for me, good on you. It makes me feel old. But it's also super fun to watch him play. And I think he is that athletic blend of, if the Dolphins, again, Elijah Higgins, we'll see if Tanner Conner materializes this year. But, that's the kind of player I think he can be. And you start forecasting that out and you say, okay, if the Dolphins are really going to be this vertical offense, they're going to be spread, and they want these blockers that are wide receiver, tight end, flex types that can crack down, and watch to see how he does with that this year. Because if he does well, you've got Eric Saubert's on a 1-year deal. Tyler Croft's on a 1-year deal. We don't know what we have in Tanner Conner. You obviously have Elijah Higgins. You drafted him. He's going to make the team. You've got all these guys that kind of fall into this limbo status, and you've seen them go after a few guys that kind of are the same athletic build. So just food for thought. If you're looking for a college football storyline, obviously when you have a Dolphins alumni whose kid is passing through, you're going to want to see them have success. Obviously, we have so many positive memories, just like with Pat Surtain and his son, obviously a cornerback and arguably the best cornerback in the league for the Denver Broncos. You think about Ronde Gaston and the catch over the middle that he had against the Jets. You think about the game-winning touchdown pass from Dan Marino. I think it was his first career touchdown against the Colts in the final minute of the game. You think about the one-handed Odell Beckham before Odell Beckham catch against the Raiders in the second half of that game. Obviously, they were losing big at that point, but he goes up and fingertips the nose of the football with 3 hands falling backwards. And a lot of good memories with Ronde Gaston. So his son is very much a baller for Syracuse. And I think there's some puzzle pieces here that I think you could fit within the picture the Dolphins are currently trying to put together. So just food for thought. That is going to do it for us here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. We talked Tua. We talked Dalvin Cook. We talked Zeke Vandenberg. We talked Ronde Gaston and his son. We covered a lot of ground here. So my day's just starting. So I'm going to hit on this energy drink a little bit. Hope you guys make it a great rest of your day. Fins up. I'll talk to y'all again tomorrow.